Hello, good morning, and hello to another reaction, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're gonna watch another video from Professor Richard Murphy. We watched one already on this channel a while back, a week or so back, I'm not quite sure. I subscribed to his channel. He releases like almost daily. He releases a lot of videos. Always like small bite-sized videos where he explains, things. And we talked about the topic at hand on my stream briefly, at least, a couple of days ago. And the video is called "Why the Wealthy Always Get Richer." Oh no, sorry. This is just the chapter. Why is it that the rich always seem to win? That's the title of the video. It will be linked down below. We're gonna listen to Professor and Professor Murphy, and then we're gonna, we're gonna discuss along, I guess, because I couldn't agree more with this man and his recent views. And let's see what he has to say on this topic. Here we go.
Why do the wealthy always get richer?
Yeah, why is that?
That's the evidence that we can see all around us at present. And the fact is, that is true. Whatever you're told about the fact that hard work supposedly creates prosperity, the evidence is otherwise. Those who now own wealth are seeing their wealth grow faster than wages are rising.
I mean, that's also due to the how taxes work, right? Because like labor gets taxed much more than wealth get taxed. In Germany, at least, like wealth itself isn't taxed as much. Like the money you already have, or especially if it's in assets, right? You don't tax the asset, and then obviously it's easier to rise the ranks the more you accumulate. It's like this game. Agar.io, the big blobs, it's easier to consume more blobs and stuff like this.
That's the way the world is now. And this is the result of deliberate economic design, and it's not an inevitable truth. There's a simple formula that explains this. It was created by a man called Thomas Piketty in an extraordinarily fat book called Capital in the 21st Century. Published in French in 2013 and in English in 2014. The whole basis of this tome is to be found.
This man seems to read a lot, according to his bookshelf in the background. I mean, he's a university professor, of course he does. I think he's very well educated from what I've seen so far. I watched a couple of videos already, and he seems to know what he's talking about.
In a simple formula, which is R is greater than G. And we need to explain what that means to understand why it is that the wealthy really do always get richer. In Piketty's work, R is the rate of return on capital. In other words, its profits, its rents, its dividends, and the gains made from speculation in financial markets. They represent the rate of return on capital. G is the growth of national income, and most of that goes to labour. So it follows that if R, the rate of return on capital, is greater than G, the growth in the national income, much of which comes down to labour, then wealth is growing faster than is the rate of return to labour, otherwise called wages.
Yeah, of course. And that makes absolute sense. It's super simple, but it makes sense, obviously. The wages don't go up nearly as much as they should, They usually stay the same for quite a while, even though there's inflation and whatnot going on. So it is really hard for the middle class, and there is like a less and less middle class. It's really hard for those people to, crawl their way to the top, of course, with the wages staying the same for a long time. And even if you get a raise or if the wages rise, it's not enough, right? It's just not enough. And you can't make it. I don't know how it is in America, if you guys have like a minimum wage and how many times the minimum wage has been risen, and if every company that employs a person has to give them the minimum wage, or if there's like a loophole around it or something. Because there are some people who even get paid less, right? And that's fucked up, of course.
And so inequality is not a side effect of this system. It is a built-in outcome within it. The rich don't need to work to get richer. They just need to own wealth. Wealth compounds over time, but what we know is that wages do not. That simple fact creates increasing inequality. And we know that inherited advantage, whether that is wealth or having parents who are able to provide you with opportunities that others are denied, creates a situation where opportunity leading to wealth grows more than income does for everyone else. And it does so right across generations.
Yeah.
Access to assets becomes the dividing line in society. And more of what we produce flows to those who do actually own wealth now. And power follows the money, including, of course, political power.
Yeah.
But for one rare moment, this was not true. That rare moment, as Piketty showed in all the data that he produced to underpin this book, was from 1945 to 1975.
Okay, these are 30 years, and I don't understand. If this is not true in these 30 years, then I don't really understand why can't we replicate this? Or why shouldn't we replicate this? Like, why should we, as the normal middle class, working class people, not strive to want this for ourselves? Like all of us, you know? Because it feels to me like that we're pitched against each other, where the people who make $30 an hour or $50 an hour should be angry at the people who make $40 an hour or $60 an hour. We fight amongst each other when we should be angry at the incredible wealthy, right? And how they manipulate the system to basically hold us down and fuck us over every day.
In the aftermath of the Second World War, we had something which was entirely different from everything that had been seen before.
Congrats if you make $60 an hour, by the way. It's not too bad.
Or since. We had full employment. We had rising real wages. We had high levels of public ownership. We had strong trade unions to keep the returns to labour high. And we had high taxes on wealth, which cut down rentier power so that those with wealth could not exercise extraordinary influence over the way in which society was operated. During that period, something that has not been seen before or since happened. The rate of growth in the economy grew faster than the rate of return to capital.
That's completely insane, and we know all of this, and we just choose to not do it. It's so weird, right? It's so weird. We're so brain fucked by the idea that, oh, if you raise the taxes on the rich, they will just leave or whatever, you know? But it has worked, obviously. And I'm pretty sure there are wealthy people out there who would even agree with this. Not everybody, of course, because they are power hungry and like money hungry for whatever reason. And I'm pretty sure there are people out there who would agree with this. That just tax the shit out of me, dude. I'm a multi-millionaire. I have tens or even hundreds of millions in wealth accumulated to my name. Just tax the fucking shit out of me, dude. You know what? That doesn't matter anymore at this point.
In other words, people got a greater share of the return from growth than did the owners of wealth. Society shared the gains of that period of quite extraordinary political change. But what we now know is that that was a historical anomaly. Margaret Thatcher in the UK and Ronald Reagan in the USA, basing their ideas on the work of Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek, ensured that the march towards inequality resumed.
No, motherfucker.
From the 1980s onwards, governments cut tax for the wealthy. They liberalized the world's market system so that money could flow into tax havens. And money flowed out of productive investment and into stock markets. And the financiers gained. finance was deregulated to ensure that asset prices were inflated, and central banks prioritized the interests of asset owners over workers, and we saw the consequence in terms of high mortgage rates and high rents.
Crazy.
The consequence was that the gains in the extraordinary period from 1945 to 1975 were reversed. Once again, R, the rate of return to capital, rose above G, the rate of return to the economy as a whole, and of course, as a consequence, because G reflects by and large the return to labour, inequality returned.
And now we're at the peak. And I think that this is not gonna go well for too long. I seriously think that people will or want this inequality to stop, because it's also not sustainable, let's be honest, right? Like, there's so many people, as I mentioned on stream, that have like second or even third jobs and they struggle to make ends meet. It's not gonna work, you know? The system is not gonna work. You can't fuck everybody over while you eat the whole fucking cake. That's not gonna fucking work. It has been tried and it's not gonna work, and we have to, you know, change the system again. I sound like the craziest socialist, but this is just the truth. The matter fact is that this is not gonna be a sustainable system. You know, fortunately, not a sustainable system, because people need to live decent lives. That's important, and we're all entitled to that, right? We're all entitled to a fair share of these like fruits of the society that we created. And I think that most people, like 99% of the people, get like just crumbs, and 1% gets like the rest of the fucking cake. That's just insane. And if you defend that as a working class citizen, you're kind of brainwashed, in my opinion.
Real economic growth in advanced economies is now barely 1 to 2%. Sometimes it's less than that. In the UK, we've got used to seeing very little real growth. But at the same time, we're seeing the rate of return to capital grow by 4% or more in many years. What is clear is that in that case, the wealthy must be getting wealthier. And that is the case. Even government bonds now pay rates of interest that guarantee real returns to their owners above the rate of growth. It's as if everything is structured to make sure that the wealthy get wealthier and everybody else pays the price. The top are taking more every year, while public services are collapsing. We have stagnation for the many and acceleration for the few, and all of that is explained by this simple formula: R is greater than G. But there's not an inevitability to this. It's happened because governments have chosen to privilege wealth.
Yeah, of course not. And why is that, right? It's because of lobbying, it's because of money. It's because capital is power. And when few people have all the capital, there's a cat in the background. Did you poop, girlie? Yeah, I think she pooped. When a few people have all of the capital, then they can obviously lobby and can manipulate like politics in a certain way. And then these kind of like structures and systems, you know, arise.
The tax system rewards capital and punishes labour. And we can see that through things like the national insurance system in the UK, which punishes labour hard, but leaves wealth entirely alone. And the obsession with balanced budgets makes sure that private fortunes soar whilst public investment declines. Market power is tolerated even when it starves society of essentials, which is now why so many people are living in intolerable housing conditions and in poverty.
And Germany as well. There are some like housing blocks where people live in, and it looks like it's incredibly bad. The rent you pay is extraordinary, and you live under certain conditions. I myself and my wife, we together, before we moved here, we lived in like a tiny flat, and we paid an okay amount of rent, I should say, but it was really, really, really rough. We had like holes in our wall, like not that we like, punch these holes in the wall or whatever. That was just like a given when we moved in already. Even in our bathroom, and there was like air coming from the outside all the time, and the windows were broken, and that's kind of the conditions you live in. But you're forced to accept it and to kind of like find like a way around it or live with it because there's just no other place to live, or at least none you can afford. And I mean, now we're obviously fortunate to live here, but you can't afford something like this within a city. Like we moved out of the city because there's no other way.
Inevitable about R, the rate of return to capital, being greater than growth, the rate of return to everything else. It is policy that's been engineered, but it is happening. And that means we have to rewrite the rules of the economy because this cannot be maintained. It's like a cancer growing within our society. This wealth is not being productive. It's destructive.
Exactly,
it's
Professor Murphy.
Squeezing out everything of value in our economy. When the private sector talks about squeezing out, they pretend that the state is denying the private sector the opportunity to grow. But in fact, the exact opposite is true. The private sector is growing inordinately. And if we look at the parallels inside human existence, there's only two occasions when we see unlimited, unfettered growth of the sort that wealth is now seeing. And one is when cancer cells invade our bodies, and the other is obesity. And we know that both of these are deeply harmful. And that's the case of wealth as well, when it grows in the way that it now is in our society. The way in which wealth is accumulating in shares, in speculative land, is all deeply toxic. And
True.
a bubble is going to be inevitable, as I have said many times before. So what do we need? We need...
Also, if you think about it, right, like we are, as like the middle class, or even like when you get even lower wages, we are the consumers, right? Like we buy the products, we use society. And if we are fucked over for a long time, we can't consume any longer. It doesn't work. Like I don't get it. Like what is the goal here, right? Like where do we go? Because it gets worse year by year. And how is it possible that nobody, or at least nobody in power, even wants to change that? Because the end goal is just that we're fucked. That's literally the end goal, We're driving towards a cliff and nobody's gonna stop us. And we'll just all fall off together, I guess, and collapse into, I don't know what type of society we collapse into.
Of course, to direct investment into care, into climate and communities, to raise G, the real rate of growth in the economy. We need to strengthen workers' bargaining power so wages rise to match the growth in productivity, which they haven't for decades. We don't have a problem with productivity gains in the UK or anywhere much else in the Western world at present. We have a problem with the growth from productivity going to the owners of capital and not to wages. And so we need trade union powers reinforced and not weakened yet again. And we need to stop rent extraction in housing, in monopolies and in finance. We need, in other words, to bring the economy back under democratic control. This is the challenge. We need to have G greater than R. We need that for a very long time to come to redress the imbalance that is being created by 45 years of it being the other way round, with wealth growing faster than wages. And markets won't exist. They're designed to cause it. Only political courage can reverse the flow of power and wealth to a few at cost to the many. We are heading for a new form of feudalism, which will be backed up by the new forms of fascism that we're now seeing, where wealth can buy everything. And what we need instead is a society that serves us and not the rentier class. It's possible we could do this, but we have to understand one simple formula. G, the rate of return to work, has to be greater than R, the rate of return to capital. Then we will have a more equal, fairer, just society where everybody can prosper.
And I really hope if you watch this video here that you at least to a certain degree agree with me and this professor here, because this is incredibly important in my opinion. This will fix so many problems. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be wealthy people, okay? I'm perfectly fine. If you're sitting there and you're wealthy, congratulations, brother, sister. You know, you've done it. But I think this cancerous amount of wealth, when it comes down to hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars, that is should be complete. That should not be a thing. Period. You know, it's just too much money for one person to one name. It's just so stupid, right? I get it, it's within assets, but if it's in assets, you can just borrow money for like basically no interest, and then you're basically borrowed yourself money. Then you don't have to pay taxes. It's like so you can like play the system so easily if you're so wealthy, and you don't have to have it on your bank account, right? Because sometimes people say, "Oh, yeah, they don't have the money on their bank account." Yeah, I know, you know, but they can easily play the system like this. It's even easier to play the system like this because it's designed to play it.
Including the wealthy, because let's be clear, they'll still be wealthy, but they just won't be growing disproportionately to the rest of us. And that's fundamental to the future well-being of our societies, our countries, and our democracies. We have to reclaim wealth for the benefit of everyone. Thanks for watching this video.
Thanks for making it, claps. Professor Murphy, I'm gonna watch more videos. That's insane. Original video down below, guys. Yeah, if you have anything to say, of course, please put it down in the comments. It always helps, like with the algorithm or whatever. Maybe some of these videos at some point pops off. Please don't insult me. That would be awesome. I understand that this is like inherently political and some people disagree with my views, and that's perfectly fine, but please be constructive. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Cheers, cheers.